I work my butt off right now. 3 jobs. I work 7 days a week, no time to rest. So I want to be able to work really hard right now to be able to relax and enjoy nice things when I'm older. And I definitely want to retire early. The so-called income that my portfolio is generating, it's going right back into it. I'm not pulling out a single dividend. Investing your money is, don't take it lightly. Like you got to be obsessed with it. It's okay to be scared sometimes, of what happens in the market, but it's just like you got to have mental fortitude when you're investing. That's what comes with it. The so-called burnout that I'm giving myself right now, absolutely necessary for financial freedom in the future, because if I'm not doing this, I believe I can't grow my portfolio to where I'll want to be by the time I'm 30.
Welcome back to another go-round worth of Masters of the Market. This week, I'm incredibly excited to have on with me Jared LaMarche. Now, he is not only a student, but he is an avid investor who has now brought in over $21,000 in his portfolio, but even more impressively, he's just about bringing in about $1,000 a month on dividends. So welcome, Jared, to Masters of the Market. And I just want to pass you the first question, Jared. What exactly is your story, and how'd you get to where you are today?
I've always been interested in being financially free. I never wanted to be broke. That's something that always scared me. So I've been working for a long time, since I was 12. Started cutting grass for my neighbor. We started with a push mower and one trimmer, and it took me over an hour to cut the lawn. I got paid $20 for it. But now we're to the point, we've also scaled our lawn care company. Also watching a lot of YouTube content about investing, and it's really prepared me for like the future. Such as Canadian in a t-shirt, so many other people. I'm just trying to learn about investing as much as possible so I can have this longevity with my money.
By the way, everybody out there, Jared has his entire portfolio on Blossom, which is actually where I found Jared. And what made me want to grab him for Masters of the Market is the very fact that he's quite a young investor, but that hasn't stopped him from getting involved in passive income investing. And more impressively, again, is this dividend income that he's bringing in every month. So where did the impetus come from to start dividend investing in the first place? And why not just go all growth?
The reason for income over growth right now, I want to see these gains almost right now. I just want my portfolio to grow because I understand that when I invest for growth, it does take a long time. Yes, and I'm okay with that. But I'd like to see my portfolio grow as much as I can while I'm young. So I have these funds in my portfolio. I can be able to put them into growth stocks later on. And I do understand that time is on my side. So I may be missing out on some gains in the S&P or maybe the total market index. But as long as my portfolio is at a certain amount by every age, I feel like I'll be satisfied. It's just starting these last 2 months. I've been doing a lot of research on covered call ETFs, just seeing a lot of posts on Blossom about it. It's really got me interested in it, and I've done a lot of research. I've chosen some stocks. I believe they're good for now. I'm really bullish on Bitcoin. I don't know. Investing is a personal journey, so I feel like if you're bullish on something, you go for it.
I like that approach. It certainly is a personal journey. And I want to actually tie that into something that you started with in sharing that, you have this fear of, not making it, so to speak, or not making enough money. I'm curious to know, where that came from and how that exactly plays a role in your investing strategy these days. It's almost your time to risk bigger right now.
That's exactly how I see it. Bigger risks. We know that these covered calls are fairly new. And I'm willing to take that risk at such a young age because maybe it does work out. Maybe I can generate this crazy income right now and grow my portfolio to where I want it to be. So I'm willing to take those risks. It's kind of hard to pinpoint where this came from. It's just, growing up, maybe, hey, mom and dad, I want to go out to eat or something. But sometimes you can't always get what you want. I want to be able to the point where I can get what I want whenever I want, and just being broke, it does scare me. I don't know where that came from, but I really just want to be financially stable. I don't want to worry about anything. I want to be able to work on relationships and pursuing a fulfilling career, stuff like that.
Do a lot of your friends invest right now? And if so, are they investing similarly? Like, I'm trying to get a gauge on whether or not a lot of these covered call ETFs are the current trend, or is this really the direction of the future? What do you think?
I believe it's a trend, but also no, I don't have any friends that invest really. Just my twin brother. So we're really both into covered call investing and stuff, and we kind of keep each other going, updating each other. But no friends that kind of invest. It's kind of like a solo journey, doing research, sharing ideas with my brother and stuff like that.
So Jared, your portfolio as of right now, the total value, correct me if I'm wrong, it's around $21,000.
Yep, yep, it fluctuates 21.2, 21.0. So yeah,
And how long exactly have you been investing?
since October 2024. So not even a year.
Not even a year, and a
No,
portfolio over
not even.
20,000.
Yeah.
There are some people, I mean, really out there who are in their 30s, 40s, 50s who don't have a portfolio like that. So I do want to give you some kudos there to just jumping in and starting on this journey. But this begs the question, where do you think most investors should actually begin investing? And are covered call ETFs where you initially started, or did you start out elsewhere?
I initially started with just VFV S&P 500. The first lump sum I threw into my Wealthsimple account went straight into VFV, as well as Enbridge. Both, on the Canadian. Well, I know S&P tracks the 500, but they're both, Canadian funds. Enbridge is Canadian, and I was bullish on Enbridge. I just saw that they're a great energy company, and I was really looking forward to the growth on seeing that, and I felt really good about them. So that's kind of where I started there, and I believe investors you should start with growth tactics such as S&P 500, total market indexes, anything that you can put your money in for now. Do some research, if these covered calls are right for you or not, and then maybe go into that later. So the safer options, definitely stick with those for when you're starting.
Do you still own the S&P?
Oh yes, it is. It's 33% of my portfolio still. I want to have a hybrid portfolio of income and growth, and I don't think I'll ever, go any lower than it is right now. If anything, increase it. So I like that safety net of having the S&P 500 in my portfolio, and the rest being covered calls. I'm okay. I like that hybrid portfolio.
Very similar in terms of making sure I have a portfolio that's built out with a solid foundation. And then I almost feel like I can take any risk that I want because that foundation is almost unshakable. What do you
Yeah.
think in that regard, though? A lot of people, when they get started with investing, they want to get right to it and start investing in, what's producing the most money. So they take these crazy risks. Do you think it is an absolute necessity to build that foundation, first, or do you think it's worthwhile to at least start building with covered call ETFs? Because at the end of the day, I mean, you're generating the income from the covered call ETFs. Why even build the foundation in the first place?
I feel like the foundation is like a stepping stone to where you need to be before you can start investing in covered call ETFs, because it's that safety net. When you first start learning about investing, you know that putting your money here, it will grow no matter what. And while having your money in the S&P, it allows you to have time to learn about these cover calls or any stocks you feel bullish on, stuff like that. So safety net is essential because it can be a learning period, and also your money is safe in there for sure.
So with that being said, when you're building your portfolio, we'll talk about how you built yours. So you started off with this foundation. What did you stack on top of that thereafter, and how large is your portfolio now in terms of the holdings count?
I think I have about 7 or 8 holdings. I own, VFV, which is my S&P 500 fund, my safety net. And then pretty much over these last few weeks, I've diverted to fully, covered call besides my S&P. So I own, about 33% S&P, and then it's about 69% covered calls.
You've kicked out individual stocks. You had own no
Yeah,
individual stocks whatsoever.
no, okay. So before, like 2 weeks ago, I owned Enbridge, and I made a decent amount of money on that. So I sold my entire position and I threw it into ULTY because I like the weekly income and I'm bullish on that stock. I like it. TD. So when I was in university this past year, we saw TD drop really big, and I was like, you know what? I'm already in TD. Let me throw a lot of money into it right now. So I got my average price down to its 52-week low, which was 76, 77. And then I held on to it until last week. I made over 30% in that stock. And then, yeah, I took my 30% gain plus my principal, and then I also threw that into covered calls, and I was like, wow, yeah. So I kind of stay away from the individual stocks because I understand that they can be volatile, but the S&P holds, 500 individual stocks, so I don't see the need to be holding on individual stocks. It's kind of risky to me, to be honest.
Jared, let me ask you a question. Do you think that the individual stock picking game is something of the past? And I've been asking a lot of investors this question because for the like I personally love researching companies and figuring out whether or not they're a worthwhile investment, if there's value there. I love doing all the due diligence work. Maybe I'm a little bit crazy, which okay, a lot of people out there would say I am, but what's the deal? Is this a thing of the past at this point in time? Should people be looking towards individual stocks, or perhaps is the lesson learned that picking the winners 100% of the time is not feasible? So go for the ETFs.
I believe that if you got the skill, you're able to read what are these financial sheets and being able to value companies. If you got the skill, then I suggest you do it. But if you do not, people are already doing it for you in these indexes, these ETFs. That route is like way safer if you're more unexperienced with picking individual stocks. And I honestly believe it's starting. It's starting to become a thing of the past because people are like, oh, well, I can just put my money in a ETF where someone has already done the research for me, and it holds these group of stocks that could possibly be undervalued and have a lot of upside potential. So it kind of takes it away off of you and it allows your money to just grow if you put it in there.
For me, at least, when I first started off investing, like mutual funds were still sexy, right? Mutual funds were kind of still in the picture.
Yeah.
ETFs were just coming about and giving investors a gateway to reduce fees. And now where we're at, I mean, we're at this crazy point in time where ETFs are about to overtake the amount of individual stocks out there. So the investment landscape is certainly evolving. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on whether or not investors, or the masses, I want to say, not even of investors, but people are evolving with our times, because investing seems to be getting easier. But yet, at least a fair amount of people that I speak to on a day-to-day basis still have no idea what's going on. And I want to know, is that like that in your circle? Is that like that? You see that on campus for yourself?
I believe investing it's kind of like a small bubble. Like if you don't know what's going on, you have no idea. And if you're just getting into it and you're on, Blossom or you're doing research, like you can learn so quickly. And I totally believe you're right. Like a lot of people they have no clue what's going on. If you want your money to last, you do the research yourself, you will figure it out. But no, you're not wrong there. For sure. I'm with you.
So can you walk us through your process then? Like, what was your learning curve? What was your experience like getting into the market? I want to ask you a personal question even, and asking you if you were afraid. I mean, getting invested in the stock market, let's be real, you're throwing real money around. You're younger, so you don't have, that much money. You're working 2 jobs. I know that. You don't have that
3.
money to really just throw around. Your time is really finite. Were you scared at all? And what was the workaround to actually get yourself into the market?
So first, as I said, I watched a lot of YouTube because I was interested, these people, they're making money every year, throwing their money in investing, this and that. I was like, okay, yeah, I'm watching videos. This is interesting. And then, I stopped looking at those videos before a bit. And then, I got into university and, my bank account, I'm just sitting on a lot of money. I just save, I don't spend. I'm sitting on near 20,000 in my bank account. And it's like, okay, yes, I have expenses. I got to pay off my truck and stuff like that. I got, phone bill, gas. And I'm like, okay, well, if I take my bank account down to where it's at right now and I throw in the stock market, I can't touch it. And, what if I lose it? I don't want to lose it. And then, my brother worked this job over the summer where a lot of his coworkers were investing, and my brother got into VFE, and I was like, you know what, man, I don't know. I'm kind of scared. I'm just going to hold on to my money. I don't want to see it go down. And when my brother was in VFE, his average price is like 129, and I'm like, wow. And then whereas mine's at like 145, so I feel like I should have got in a lot earlier, but I was scared at first to throw my money in. I was like, I probably shouldn't do this right now. But I had all this capital I was sitting on and well above, my cushion to where I wanted to be, and I didn't spend money. So, but yeah, I was definitely scared, but I eventually, broke through that, and I invested like 70% of that within the next 2 weeks. My Wealthsimple account just boom, all of it. I just went all in, and then I was like, you know what? No going back. So, yeah.
And then from there, you started building these covered call positions. Well, you had Enbridge, you had a couple individual stocks, but
Yep.
following those individual stocks, you started to jump into the covered call ETFs. A lot of people, and I mean a lot of people, would sit here with us right now if they were on and say, these covered call ETFs are crap, they don't work, and let's talk erosion, erosion, erosion. I want to get your
Yeah.
take on erosion. Is it real? Do we need to watch out for it? And if it is real, where do we look? How do we avoid erosion?
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people, you see it so much on Blossom every day, um, NAV erosion, don't invest in these cover calls. They're losing money. They're giving you your own money back to you. You're not getting any gains. You know what? Just because I watched the interview with and the guy at Yield Max, I watched that and he was saying, "Oh, NAV isn't real." Like if we were giving, it'd be illegal to give your own money back. That's what he was saying. And I was like, yeah, I kind of agree with that. I'm looking at these stocks like ULTY right now. It's at a, like a 52-week low. It's just like right at the bottom. And ever since they went to weekly, it's been stable at around $6.20 USD. I'm looking at it like it's low of all time with 5.80. So I'm thinking like, there's a lot of upside potential here. And if there was, any erosion, we would see that after they went to weekly, it'd go down even further. But like they're staying stable. But I have a good entry point, for these stocks. Like, I was at like 21 the other day and I had, huge gains. Yeah, they swing a lot. I'm okay with that. But we just have to wait and see for this, if there's NAV erosion, if it's real. If you start seeing these stocks to wither away, then it's time to get out and let's go into something else. I'm also in Harvest and I have a good entry point in there. My average price is like 11.50. I'm up pretty good on that. And the thing about Harvest ETFs, what I've noticed is that their distributions have been really, really consistent, like every month. And it's been that for a long time. I believe their ability to be able to do that, I see longevity in that. And if they really were experiencing NAV erosion, then you'd see those distributions wither away, the stocks start to go down. Yeah, that one day when Tesla released the robo driving thing, it shot up 8% in that day, and I sold and I made some money that day. And it's been stable or a little above my average price. My average price is like 680 and it's still like 7 something. And I'm bullish on these, cover call ETFs, like just from my own experience and reading. So if there was an erosion, we might see it in this next year, but I plan to hold these ETFs for as long as they're willing to pay me. So as long as I can grow my portfolio and these don't start to wither away, we start seeing that actual NAV erosion, then I'm going to keep holding.
It's interesting what you shared is that, first of all, you're right. These products, all of them, they're too new for us to really have a firm grip on how they're going to perform over the long span of time. You mentioned that you basically check them often. It sounds like you almost check them every day. So let me start there. How often do you check your portfolio in order to make sure that everything's staying afloat?
Yeah, I check it so many times a day, like every day. Every 10 minutes I'm checking my portfolio, see if there's some crazy changes. Even when I'm at work, it's like, oh, well, I guess we'll see what's going on with my portfolio. I get notifications if Bitcoin, Ethereum, or whatever has dropped 5-10% on Wealthsimple, so I get those notifications, and I'm always checking. Is there a new fund out? How's my portfolio for the day? how will this affect tomorrow? Stuff like that. So I see, if I see a huge gain today, you know what? I'm going to take that profit. I'm going to take that profit, sell those couple shares, put it in something else. I'm really keen on taking profit as well. Like I've noticed that like if I see a small jump, I'll take a little bit of profit there. Therefore you've locked in those gains in your portfolio. Your portfolio has grown. So I'm going to take those gains. So yeah, but yeah, I'm checking my portfolio every day, multiple times a day.
Now, Jared, is that a necessary strategy you think for every investor to be able to take profit when they see that profit?
I used to have this rules to where like if I see I'm up 20 to 25% on a stock, I'm going to take profit. Once you have more money in a singular ETF or stock, that number becomes less. Like maybe 10% if you have more money in there. Yes, take some profit. But it really depends on the investor because a lot of people, they like to invest in, VFV, VOO, and they just like to set and forget and let it grow. But sometimes I believe it's essential to take those profits because in those dips, what happened in 2020, you had your portfolio maybe drop so much, 30%, whatever it was. But, before that, if you were slowly taking profit and strategically reinvesting into other stocks or possibly right back in, then you wouldn't have seen much of a downside. So that's why I believe sometimes, yeah, it is crucial to take profits when you see them.
Jared, make the case for us right now. Let's say an investor was on with us saying, no way, you buy, you hold, you never sell. You're here saying it's almost important for every investor to at least nibble at some profits because in the event of another 2020 scenario, at least you've taken something off the table. The other point here is with these ETFs, why does one even need to buy and sell? Why can't they just hold?
Once you get a certain amount into an ETF, those daily swings will affect you more than you having it in VFV or something like that. But I believe, I saw my TSLY go up by 8%. And that's, since my portfolio is relatively small, I'm like, yeah, okay. And my one stock went up by $250 today. I was like, okay, well, that's a lot to me. If I can lock in that $250, sell those, 30 shares of the 185 I owned previously, if I can sell these 30 shares and take the $250 profit and put it into something else that will make me money, I've locked in that money. The next day, the market could take that 250 right from me. So I took it back and I sold it. And I just, sometimes, yeah, it's just important to take profit sometimes.
Now, even if one's not taking the profit and they're just buying to hold some of these ETFs, a question I want to ask you specifically with a lot of these ETFs is the buy and hold approach a fair approach to use? Because a lot of these ETFs, I mean, they're basically reset daily. So the objective on them is basically put your eyes on them and make sure that they're working for you on a daily basis, with the objective being day to day. Is it necessary in your experience to watch it as much as you have been watching it? Or do you think it's more of a kind of the addiction to check the screen, see how much money's coming in or what came in, where you're at?
I think it's a little bit of both. Like, yes, I'm addicted to checking my portfolio because I'm obsessed with, my money and I want to be able to do well. On the other hand, these covered call ETFs, they're new. You don't know what they're going to do yet. We've only seen them for the last maybe year or a couple months now, seriously. So I feel like it is crucial to check them because they change every day. And if you were to just buy and hold all of these brand new ETFs, you could lose so much money because they're new. So I feel like right now we don't know about them, so it's crucial to take these profits. That's why I'm saying it, because they're new. That's my strategy.
Something you mentioned earlier on, which I'm going to circle back to. I just have so many questions for you. You were sharing about how you're investing into these funds. And then you were sharing, as we're talking about now, you're checking them quite frequently, you're taking profits. But you then shared as well that this is, in fact, a trend. It's kind of the trend of our times. And so for that matter, we do have to be careful. But also, you shared if some of these funds go down, that's okay. You take your money out and you put it somewhere else. And I just want to ask you, Where the heck did that attitude come from, that tenacity? Because again, when we're talking about investing, let's just be real. A lot of investors will put money into the market. They'll see that 2020 scenario. They see something slide and they pull their money out and they say, forget about it. I'm out. But you're here telling me, no, I see the money. If it goes down, okay, so be it. I throw it somewhere else. How the hell do we develop the wherewithal and that tenacity that you have, Jared?
That's, over time, right? If you, because these covered call ETFs are new, if you start to see them, this has to do with checking your portfolio daily, to see, okay, I'm seeing, maybe 2% today, down another 2%, and it's like, okay, maybe it's time to do it. But it's different when you're investing in VOO or VFV. You see a big drop, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it's on sale today. Let's buy. The only reason I'm like that for the cover call ETFs is because they're new and it's really uncertain. I look at my overall percentage. What did I gain here? So I'll say maybe in all this passive income, I've gained your money back. Yeah, say this is over a year, you've gained, they're paying like 140% or something. Say you've got your money back plus 40%, and then you start to see, some of those profits wither away. It's like, okay, yeah, look, I got this lump sum of my money back plus 40%. Let's take it out and let's reevaluate. So it's kind of like, day trading almost, what you're doing with these covered call ETFs, but you just really got to watch them. Yeah, because there's so many of them. There's so many, you can do what you like, because when one's at an all-time high, another one may be at a 52-week low, and that's where you can put your money.
But where does this attitude come from of I'm not afraid to take, like, let's say all of these covered call ETFs drop dramatically and the trend is over. Let's say it happens in the next 24 hours. Your persona is, it's all good. I'm just going to take my money and I'm going to keep investing. I'm just going to keep doing it. No matter where it is, I'm going to stay in the market, which is the exact attitude that everybody should have. But I'm going to be real, not everybody has it. And therefore, a lot of people lose money in the market. So give us the Jared Lamarche training on how to develop that mindset so we all can stay in the game, whether it's covered call ETFs, dividend stocks, or anything in between.
Yeah, you see your money going down. It's kind of an example of like 2020. Your money dropped. People pulled their money out. Like, you got to understand, the market bounces back. It's really impossible that, VFE would go down to zero tomorrow and then everyone would just lose equity in everything. Like, that just doesn't happen. The market always bounces back. And if it doesn't, just wait. Time in the market, outweighs timing. So don't pull your money out, wait for a discount. You go right back in because it will come back. If you're scared to put it back in these cover call ETFs, go for VFE, VOO. There's your safety net. I believe having your money in the market is better than having it in your bank account where you're making 0.25, 0.025%. Your money will always make you more when it's in the market. It's got to be working for you.
It's almost a funny question, but would you say 2020 was almost your preseason? I think a lot of people who were in before 2020 and then 2020 happened, they were brand new to investing. Like 50% of them were scared, shirtless and ran, and the other 50% like stayed in the market and saw their returns. And as you shared, we do always get that bounce back, at least over time. How do you work on and develop your wherewithal to stand up regardless of the fear that every now and again, let's be honest, it comes?
It's investing your money is, don't take it lightly. Like, you got to be obsessed with it. And I feel like, it's okay to be scared sometimes, of what happens in the market, but it's just like, you got to have mental fortitude when you're investing. That's what comes with it. You got to know that you're taking a risk. It's always risky with what you're doing. When people, they pulled out, they lost what they would have gained from 2020 to 2024. There's so much, to get there, so much money. But you just gotta stand strong because investing, it's the long term game. It's a mental fortitude game. It's risky. Yeah, you gotta understand. You worked hard for this money. You want it to grow, so you have to take a risk with it. So That's what comes with it. Lots of risk.
Are the traditional dividend stocks dead to you? Like, did it ever come to mind for you that there are other opportunities out there? You know, and I know it's crazy to say, I almost feel like these days, like the Visas or Philip Morrises of the world that were once like the kingpins of the dividend investment community because
Yeah.
they were yielding like 7, 8% sometimes. I think AT&T got upwards of like 9%. Now, of course, glaringly obvious with these yields that are 20%, 30%, 40, it goes on and on. It's no longer sexy, if you will, to invest in the dividend stocks of the past that are yielding, some of them in my portfolio. I'll even talk personally. I have Visa in my portfolio, United Healthcare is in my portfolio, and I would imagine that these stocks are not sexy in the slightest to you. And so I want to know, like, from your standpoint, are these dividend stocks, this is the thing of the past?
I believe like it's starting to shift as a thing of the past. If you look at someone such as Dividendology on YouTube, he has a portfolio based on dividend growth. He's making these projections of what these companies such as Visa have done in the past, raising their dividends. That's a long time to wait, like with these projections. If you think, it's going to keep going up and up, you don't know what's going to happen with these stocks. Like, yes, these stocks are good to hold for capital gains, but I don't think they're really optimal if you want income. If you want income, what's in the now is covered call ETFs. And I feel like that's where your money should be. A thing of the past, I definitely think it is because Starbucks pays good. We all know Coke is a dividend king, but it's taken them 50 years to get there. That's why they're classified as that. And you have someone who's retiring maybe next year. They need this money now. They can't wait until a company becomes, a dividend king or something like that. So I just believe, yeah, definitely a thing of the past if you want income now.
Now, I think you're a bachelor, you're a young guy, you got a whole career ahead of you. You're not nearing retirement. So it begs the question again, because you have that time on your side, why do you need the income right now? Mm-hmm. And what's kind of the Jared LaMarche pathway to the future? Is there a retiring early aspect in there for you, and that's why you're really into the income now? I know you already said, you want money when you want it, so you could do whatever you want with it, which all makes sense, but there's got to be a vision.
The vision is like this so-called income that my portfolio is generating. It's going right back into it. I'm not pulling out a single dividend. I don't touch this money to pay my bills. I work 3 jobs to pay my bills. The vision right now is for my portfolio to grow. I want it to grow. And the way it's going to do that is by getting these crazy, dividends, whatever I'm getting per month. I just want to see that number expand. And then over time, as I said, my strategy is if I start to see these cover calls, become out of the now and they start to wither away, I will definitely go more towards the safer investment of investing, in the S&P or total market index. I definitely have a vision of retiring early. I work my butt off right now, 3 jobs. I work 7 days a week, no time to rest. And that's why I'm working so hard right now. I got to pay for university, insurance in my truck, my phone bill, and any fun things that I want. I work for everything. So I want to be able to work really hard right now to be able to relax and enjoy nice things when I'm older, and I definitely want to retire early for sure.
Well, it's very admirable, approach. I know you're a very hard worker, and it's abundantly clear, not just from your portfolio, but even, on Blossom. Once again, Jared is on Blossom, his full portfolio on display, what he's investing in, and how exactly he's bringing in. I did the math, roughly around $833 to $1,000 a month. This is, to me, gold. At such a young age, to be invested, to be in the market as you are. I'm curious to get your take on this with taxes. Do you think about taxes at all? I know you have your lawn care business, so you're business-minded, you're entrepreneurial. How do taxes play a role in the maintenance of building this portfolio?
The best thing about that is all of my investments right now are in my TFSA. Absolutely everything I'm getting is tax-free. Yes, the U.S. covered calls that I have in my portfolio are getting taxed 15% on the way in. That doesn't bother me. It's minuscule. Yeah, you can take 15% all day from this dividend, But overall, the income that's my TFSA is generating is all tax free. It's my only portfolio. I haven't started investing in my FHSA yet, nor my RSP. I have control of absolutely everything in my tax-free portfolio. And eventually, yeah, I'll start making more money, once I finish university and get a good job. That's when I'll start worrying about taxes for my other portfolios. But, by looking at my portfolio and the projections of it, honestly, it's looking like I'm only going to need my TFSA, which is crazy enough to say right now, because of all the dividend income I'm receiving. That's where I'm at right now, but I understand, once I get older, I'm going to have to start maxing out my FHSA and my RSP. Yeah, for right now, everything's tax-free.
I just had someone else on from Canada, our friends up north, and you guys are killing it. When it comes to the retirement accounts, you guys know exactly how to use those babies to your advantage because, from what I understand, you can pull out that money regardless of whatever age you are. And in America, of course, we have restrictions on when we can actually pull out. Otherwise, we get penalized. So that is, I feel like, one of the biggest benefits to being a Canadian investor over a U.S. investor. I'll just say that. I want to actually ask you something about working, and you're young, you're working 3 jobs. There's a lot of people out there, Jared, who I'm sure you know some. I'm sure you've seen comments. I'm sure they're out there in the world, complainers. I don't have the money to invest. I can't invest. I can't make enough money. This list goes on and on and on. And then I meet someone like yourself, someone working 3 jobs, someone making a tremendous sacrifice at such a young age. Give us some Jared LaMarche motivation. How should we reframe our mindset to actually, I'm going to say, get on the wagon of investing? This is arguably the most important thing any of us can be doing, regardless of our age. I always like to say, no one's coming for us, right? Like, we have to make it. And so you at such a young age have this mindset, and I've spoken to people, 30s, 40s, 50s who don't have this mindset. So what's some motivation that we can utilize and put forth?
Yeah, before the motivation, the first thing we got to understand is that, some people will say, yes, I don't have enough money, every month to invest. We got to understand that first, people come from different backgrounds. They come from, maybe their generational poorness, they didn't learn these tactics, but we got to understand that the reason, sometimes these people don't have extra money is because they were never taught, it's not their fault. But from seeing these, people make mistakes like that, and from seeing others, online on reels, just videos of people, being in poor financial situations, such as, like, I watched Caleb Hammer as well with financial audit, and I see people in such poor financial situations. It scares me to be there. Some motivation I can give is, if you're single, you don't have dependents, you don't have kids, go get that second job. I believe the so-called burnout that I'm giving myself right now is absolutely necessary for financial freedom in the future, because if I'm not doing this, you know what I mean? I believe I can't grow my portfolio to where I'll want to be by the time I'm 30 and 40. Go get that second job, find other ways to make money, and such as covered call investing, have your money make more money for you. That's my advice.
Go out there, get the second job. The time is now. And what's crazy, what you shared, is I thought you were going to say, by the time I'm 45, 50, 60. No, you're saying I could be at this financial freedom by 30, which is a new reality that I hear from a lot of folks, these days, thanks to a lot of these vehicles out there for us in the new financial landscape. Jared, you get paid. You got income coming in from 3 jobs, and you got to disperse this income into your portfolio and allocate. I'm assuming you have a strategy for that. Walk us through that strategy. How much money goes into the foundation that you're still growing, and how much money goes into the covered call ETFs?
So, I get paid bi-weekly. So, I work one job. I work at Canadian Tire. I get paid every other Thursday. And then my other job, I get paid every other Friday. So bi-weekly for both jobs, I get paid on the same week. And with that, it goes right into my account, and then I immediately distribute money towards my savings account, towards my cushion. So I'll have this cushion to rely on. I try to grow that, as much as possible. I really don't have no goal for that. It's just to help with university and, rent for university, any food I might need while I'm up there. That's my cushion in it, and I grow it, very large. And then another lump sum, I have automatic deposit into Wealthsimple. And then I have, my, what is it, 8, 9 holdings. I just disperse, so I have a certain amount of contribution room left for the year. It's like $2,100. So I divided that by, the amount of months until the second week in December. So I know there's like 10 more investing periods in the calendar year. So I kind of just did the math, and I have that a certain amount of money that goes in every 2 weeks divided by, my 8 holdings, and I have the same amount go into all the holdings to grow them at the same rate.
Now, you mentioned you don't have a savings for yourself, at least at this point in time. You're busy investing all the money into the funds.
Oh no,
do you think it's necessary?
I do have a savings. That's my cushion. I have
okay,
a I have
you,
a
you
I have
have you have a savings,
yeah.
like a good 6 months worth of savings. Okay.
Way more than that.
Is that necessary, or would you recommend that investors just throw money into the market as quickly as they can?
No, you know what? You got to have a strategy with your income. You got to know where every single dollar is going. So you need a cushion 100%. I know people are not as young as me. They don't live in their parents' house where meals are on the table every night. They have kids, so it's like that cushion is so important. What if your car breaks down, or something in your home breaks? You can't afford rent this month. It's like, okay, yes, I have this cushion. It's extremely important. You gotta build your cushion and your investment portfolio at the same time. Even if they're both not at the same rate, you need a cushion no matter what.
Jared, where did you get this mindset? We've been talking for almost an hour here, and I just, every answer that you have, I mean, it's well thought out. You sound like, just from the short amount of time you've been investing, you've gained a ton of experience. Your mind's on right. I'm just trying to piece 2 and 2 together. Did your parents play a role in this? Or was it just you got your hands on your phone or computer and it was YouTubers? How did Jared LaMarche get to be Jared LaMarche of today?
It's honestly, I don't have any financial role models, really. It's really myself. I didn't learn, from my parents because they never taught me. They never taught me about investing. My mom always told me to save. So yes, I saved. That's how I was able to, my bank account was so big before I went to university, was because I saved. My mom told me to save, but nothing really after that. I don't look to them for investing advice. I've learned absolutely everything I know through YouTube and Blossom. It's just everything. It's been self-research. You know what I mean? There's no IRL people that I can really talk to about this. And I've seen, you see situations again online of people being poor, bro. I just don't want to be there. It scares me to death, not having income or, not having any money. It's just scary. I don't want to be there. Yeah, I've learned absolutely everything on my own through YouTube, Blossom, and research.
There's a lot of financial giants out there. I'm sure you know the names of, Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger, right? And some of these big sages that everybody, at least, when I was growing up and, when I started investing, Warren Buffett's advice was still the gold standard, which is like, this is all about the long term. And I feel like I'm talking to so many investors these days because of the new products that we have out, and you're in this camp. It's not about the long term anymore. It's actually about how much money you can make now in these passive income strategies. And there are so many YouTube channels, investors. I go on Blossom for half a second, and you can see just how many investors are out there talking about retiring early. This is a movement. I mean, I don't know if you're familiar with Mr. Money Mustache, but Mr. Money Mustache is a guy from like a decade ago who was talking about retiring early. And he was doing it just through investing into very, very simple funds. But what I'm getting at here is it almost sounds like the advice from the sages, Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, right? These guys, it's gone with the wind.
I feel like half of it's still true. You know what I mean? The cushion in your portfolio, should be that long-term investment, that S&P 500. I'll stand by that. Half of it's gone, and half of it's new. That's why you see people with these hybrid portfolios of extreme income and growth. So, yeah, it's nowadays, if you want to retire early with income, you know what I mean? You can utilize these covered call ETFs, but if you don't want the income, then like who doesn't? Go all in, on S&P funds or pick stocks, Google, Amazon, Facebook. You know what I mean? You will see capital gains over time with these funds, and then once you retire, you can withdraw your 4% per year. But what these cover call ETFs allow us to do is have income while you're in retirement. So it's kind of like a half and half now. That's how I see it.
How important would you say an investment community is to have around you? I mean, you have, and I have as well, we're both on Blossom, and investors today have Blossom. Again, another pitch here for Blossom. If you're not already on Blossom, there's a link down there in the description, pinned comment. Get on Blossom, a whole community worth of investors. But I'm curious, Jared, how important is it for you to have a strong community, an outlet, people to connect to? I know you also have your brother that you talk to about this game of investing. Does it make a difference, or is someone okay to be kind of a lone wolf investor?
Yeah, it makes a huge difference, because when I'm following all these people on Blossom and I'm seeing their strategies, you can learn from other people. Being on your own, you could do your own research enough like that. Even if you did post your portfolio and nobody responded, with critiques or something like that, you can still do research on your own. It's very possible. I did that for, less than a year. You know what I mean? For all the time I've been investing, I did my own research. But I believe eventually, yes, it is great to have a community around you. You can learn from others, and they can teach you so much. I've learned so much from being on Blossom. I was following Paul Santori for, before he got all these followers. I looked up to him. I looked up to someone like Paul, these guys, in income investing. I was like, one day, I want to be like Paul. Now he blew up, and it's trendy to do what he's doing. And, we're going back and forth in comments. It's like, okay, cool. People I look up to, I get to talk to them, and I'm going to get to meet them in September, at the Blossom conference in Toronto, which I'm going to attend. So, and that's just the craziest thing. Sometimes the people you look up to are right at your fingertips. You can just communicate with them, and it is so crazy to me, and I just love it so much. Having that community is the best thing ever. It feels so good.
What would you say is the biggest lesson learned thus far in your investment career?
Biggest lesson I've learned is just, for any dip, it's a sale. Buy. Just buy. Keep your money in there. Don't take it out. It's not going to do anything sitting in your bank account. Having a cash reserve, yes, is always important. Having a savings cushion is always important. 3 to 6 months, a year, anything. Having a cushion, buying the dips, and keeping your money in the market are my 3 rules that I follow.
Put you in the hot seat with this question here, and let's just say we had the opportunity, which we do really right now, to talk to thousands and upon thousands of investors. If there was one common mistake that you see happening time and time again, that if investors could just eliminate that mistake, we would all set ourselves up for much better success. What do you think that mistake is, and how do we correct it?
Not doing your own research, not having a solo journey in this investing stuff before you start going all in. Having your solo journey of discovering, what different stocks, ETFs, your strategy. You have to understand your strategy and your journey. You can't be doing what other people are doing. Like a year ago, on Blossom, you could see people investing in like, tech stocks or, Rocket Lab or something like that. And I saw stuff like that, and I'm like, okay, yeah, that's not for me. It's just not for me right now. I don't understand what's going on with these stocks. Therefore, it's not for me. So you kind of have to understand where you stand in your investing journey, what you want 20 to 30 years. That's where you should be investing. So having a solo journey is very important. not just blindly following what others are doing. So do your own research. It's very, very important.
Jared, how do we know exactly who to trust? Let's say we're on Blossom. There's thousands of investors who are posting almost every second. We get to see everybody's portfolios. You go onto YouTube, you're, almost just hit immediately with one video after the next on this strategy, this stock, this ETF. How do we know who to trust?
That's a very important question. So, when it comes down to it, you can only trust yourself at times. It's really hard to tell. What I also like to do is I like to see what's working for other people. You know what I mean? You kind of dip your toes, here and there. Like if you see income investing is working for somebody, you're like, okay, well maybe I can do this. Don't go all in, but try it. Give it a try. Give it a try to what other people are doing, because going all into one strategy, it's scary, it's risky, and it doesn't always work for you because they have different goals than you. I believe just at least trying, here and there, dipping your toes in a little bit, not going all in, that's important.
Is that the way you feel to figure out or determine rather your investor profile, or how would you say investors can go about piecing together their investor profile so they actually come to an ultimate investor profile fitting or suitable for themselves?
That's what I've done, exactly what I've done. I've seen what works for other people, and then I do research. Okay, what does this stock look like? How has it been performing? What are the upsides? What are the downsides? Yeah, I really look at what's working for other people and think, okay, how can this work for me? How can I make this work for me? So that's kind of how I built my investor portfolio, is by, looking at other people, seeing what's working for them and trying it out myself. Not going all in, but trying it.
Now, investors, there's your opportunity to invest like Jared. It's here. It's now. You can jump onto Blossom. There's a link, like I keep saying, down there in my description pinned comment. Get onto Blossom. Find Jared LaMarche's portfolio. Figure out how he's investing. If it's suitable for you, you could definitely cop his ideas just by looking at his portfolio, or you can even send him a direct message. But I want to say, Jared, I am honored to have you on Masters of the Market, and I look forward hopefully to having you on Masters of the Market again with a major update, in the coming years of where you're at, hopefully by 30 retired, as you shared the plan was. But until the next go round of Masters of the Market, investors, we will catch you all in the next one.